What has happened with Moderna after this whole Corona period that we have behind us?
Well, a while, not too much, but this week there was some spectacular action.
Spectacular action in what sense? They brought some news out, no?
I will explain you later.
I think we cannot skip the most important thing that everybody was talking about by the end of this year, which was the Fed, the ECB,
Yep.
and I think Bank of England as well, no?
Yeah.
We're going to stick to those two. We're going to stick to the Fed and the ECB.
Mm-hmm.
You want to do the ECB?
Well, maybe you start yesterday with the Fed.
Yeah, but I mean, you talk about the ECB, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So we had Jerome Powell yesterday evening, and I think the news was already known. He was going to not increase the interest with 75 basis points. It was 50 basis points, so 0.5%. And why did he do that? Because the core inflation, which came out on Tuesday, and I've shown that also to some people when I gave a seminar a couple of weeks ago. The core inflation most of the time put the market into action, and you saw actually it happen this time again, because on Tuesday evening the market was quite heavily moving, and yesterday also, but in the end it flattened sort of like out. No? So what happened? The core inflation was only 7.1%, where it was before 7.3%. And I think it's a really interesting discussion. And this morning on my way here, I was listening to a podcast, and actually the importance of the inflation cannot be underestimated, because why is it so important? If you look at April from this year, the tax income receipt, so how much money did the US government receive out of taxes? So in April, everybody in the US needs to do his tax declaration, was 860 billion. And of course you might, well, yeah, is that a lot or is that not a lot? If you compare that to last year, it was 440 billion. So the whole bubble and the whole inflation, the higher price and everything, is what you see also back on the income side for the US. If you look at pre-COVID, you were always around 350, 360. So everybody's always, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. But inflation in some sort of way is really important, because the expenditure at the moment is, on if you compare it to the GDP in the US, it's getting to a point that if they don't have these tax incomes, they're really getting into trouble. So I think that they're really, it's like playing a chess game, like left, right, and see how far we can go, and now they see this little effect, but they need actually inflation. That was what I found the most interesting part of this, that they still keep increasing it, the interest rates, because I think they need this high inflation.
So there are more things at stake for some parties, for some governments, than only reducing inflation.
Exactly.
That's important to know. Yeah.
Then we had the ECB, Lagarde. I didn't see it. Did you watch it? Did you see it?
No, I didn't watch it. I did follow the markets at that time. It was a 2:15. And actually today it is Thursday.
Yeah.
Actually I was preparing to say, well, like no real movements. Also there, no surprises, 0.5% up to 2.5%. And the market was not reacting, but actually towards the additional texts, markets went quite down.
Yeah, people can see it behind us. If they can see the clock, it's about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in Europe now.
Yeah.
And it's not positive.
So from 3, 4 o'clock markets were down, so not that positive, but there was not a real surprise. So it's all about the explanation, the ECB not that positive about the economical situation. So, but then again, it's also not, I think we are a little bit lower than 1 week ago, so the market was positive first and now back.
Yeah, it's
not really something until now.
To write home about.
Something like
that. So Lagarde did 0.5% as well. No?
Yeah, as expected as well. Yeah.
Okay, I think then it's time now to move on to our main topic of the day, which is Moderna.
Moderna, yes.
Casper and myself, we talked about it briefly, but more in a webinar, because actually thinking when did we talk about it? Because we've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we had one of the market reporters, I think it was in 2020, no, December 2020, oh no, even before, I think December 2020, they were discussing the fact whether or not we were going to get the jab, we were going to get the vaccine, and in the end we both got them, and that was the question, which one are we going to take, and in the end I got the Pfizer. But if we look at what happened with Moderna as a company in itself, they came in the news this week. First of all, end of November they came out with the fact that they had to withdraw their expectations, the projections for what they were going to earn on the COVID vaccines from 3 billion to 2 billion. Then they had some delays with the shipments to Europe, which was also not in their favor, of course. They did have a really good sales revenue, 21 billion compared to 19 billion which was expected. So all in all, it was still quite positive. But yeah, if we look at the difference between, for instance, Moderna and Pfizer from a fundamental perspective, yeah, you can really see that Moderna was making not a hell of a lot of money. They were making in these years around COVID 2021, they were actually in 2020 they actually lost money. 2021 the earnings per share were going up to $28, $22 for this year expected, but next year they expect only 5.7. The year after 2.27, and the year thereafter, so we're talking about 2025, only $3.67. If you compare that to Pfizer, they were already obviously making money in 2020, so they earned $2.20 per share. In 2021, of course, they made a lot more money because they were selling much more vaccines. They went up to $4.42. For this year, they have an increase where Moderna is losing like almost $6 per share earnings. They are going up with 2.5, so they got a 50% increase. They are, however, turning it back to the levels of 2021 for next year, and the years after it's quite stable. While in Moderna you see a big drop in the expected earnings per share, in Pfizer you see that it's quite stable. But they have some positive news that might change that, or
yeah, exactly. This was like the situation how it was going all the year, but this week there was spectacular information. I must say, I watched that video of 2 years ago of you both, because of course I did remember it, but not exactly what you're speaking. And it's surprising to see what happened now in those 2 years. We were all like surprised at what's happening.
Yeah.
This pharmacist is going to make one with 2 jabs and the other one. Like we didn't know anything. No? I mean, not we as investors, but as persons.
Everybody that did not want to take the vaccine were like, oh, that's a whoppy. And
exactly. It's really incredible. At that time, the dollar, I had some information, was around 120.
Wow.
Also, just to see, I remember you speaking like it's now 120. Moderna was trading around $140. And actually after that, not especially after that market report, but it went up in 2021 to 500 almost.
Wow.
So in 2021 summer, it was every time high after high after high. But you said like they were not actually in 19 and 20, they were actually losing money. In 21 it turned, but the price was 500, and then second part of 2021 it fell back actually to 120 in 2022. Only
120 approximately.
Well, well, it was actually in October, so that was actually the lowest point. So you see what kind of movements, and like you said, there was news in November, it was up a little bit, but this week, and that's what I was speaking about, they announced to have like, a major, well, not really discovery, they did tests together with Merck. There's like Keytrude, it's a medicine against cancer, and they have like a vaccine that actually, that combination reduces the returning of cancer. It's like a personalized medicine.
Was it specifically for skin cancer or other organs?
I think so, yeah, but the idea is that this kind of treatment could also be used in the future. So it's one say it's like really a game changer, could be for the company. Others warn about this kind of messages like, okay, it's one result during a phase, but there's a next phase. So I think the whole market is quite specialist, and we all know now a little bit about Corona. We are all the companies everyone was speaking about, but still to invest in those companies, I think it's really a specialist market.
It's difficult, very difficult.
It's difficult, but like you said, the earnings per share, the development was actually, recovering from the earlier years, but better then. But now it's waiting what will happen. There's actually not really, I didn't find it real information about the pricing of this new combination of medicine, so that's actually very important, of course. The analysts, I had a look also.
About the price expectations?
No, actually more for the future, 6 for buying, but I mean the real...
What's the analyst price target?
Actually, I did not check it, but I mean, I think this information, I mean, it went up, I didn't tell you yet, but it was 165 around that trading beginning of this week, and now it's before opening US 210, so it went up like 25 So that,
Wow.
that makes quite a
Yeah, but
difference in
imagine
expectations.
if what I have here in front of me is correct, $5.70 earnings for next year
Yeah,
on a price of 200 something, you talk about 40 times the earnings, which is quite an expensive stock already.
yeah. So yeah,
And it goes down for the 224.
yeah, it's true. So the price now, it's also difficult because I read that this kind of companies, if there's this kind of news, they have all contracts between the companies themselves. For example, I'm not sure in this case, but Merck and they have like maybe options that they can actually execute, to continue working, and there's a lot of money involved. So it's very difficult to say, okay, now this one is going to gain the whole market. So it's a real process, but yeah, 25% in 1 week, that's quite a big movement for
I think so,
share.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. So the market picked up this news very good, and I think that is a positive sign, because if they depend only on COVID, I think
Yeah.
they have not such a bright scenario. And I also read that the CEO, and I wrote his name down somewhere, I think Bansal his name is, he said we have a lot of stuff in the pipeline, we're doing a lot of things at the moment, but it all needs to still come out.
Yeah.
It's like they're really working without really producing anything yet. But
Exactly.
I think it's an interesting company to follow.
I read it
And
as
I
well. This one could be one of them, like the thing they need, the game changer. But also the news, it is like not only coming from them. There were some checks, but you still need to know what is now exact the situation. What in the next phase there is still something wrong. You know what I mean? So.
No, definitely. I mean, and you see many times with these pharmaceutical stocks. I mean, if you buy a Pfizer or a Novartis, they have so many generic medicines like paracetamol or ibuprofen and stuff. They will sell that and keep selling that onwards unless something good comes up. But if we talk about these speculative things, like in the past with Gilead Sciences and these pharmaceutical companies, it's really tough because the commission in the US whistles it back and they're back to square one. They really need to go back to the drawing table because this connection.
Exactly.
It's really
It's a complicated business they are, and it's share anyhow. I mean, when it was trading 140 2 years ago, it went up also from almost nothing to that level, and then again almost to 500 back to. So I think it's quite clear it's a speculative share.
I think I almost dare to say that for us. And I mean, we know a lot of shares.
Mm-hmm.
This is because we're dealing with shares in clients every day, so we see a lot passing by now. But people investing really in these sort of companies. I'm moving myself on flat ice, but I think it's a little bit of a gamble always. It's hoping on the fact that it's so specialist work. They bring out now something, well, what is the truth behind it? How much checks needs to be still done?
Maybe I think you're right, and maybe we should say you can also consider the basket. No, if you have a lot of those companies, and in general the medicine level will deliver. That could be a nice conclusion.
ETF, for instance, the select sector from SPDR. You buy a basket of these companies. There's a lot of possibilities.
Nice conclusion.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.